Hey there! Okay, today's DIY is painted pots. I love these pots, they look so cool. So we're just starting with a plain terracotta pot and we're just using 4 colours on 2 different pots. So I'm going to show you how I get these finishes.
Okay, first thing we need to do is get our paintbrushes ready. So I've got a thin one, a medium-sized one and a thicker one. I've also got this little sponge, round sponge dabber, which is great for little circles. I've got my jar of water for rinsing the paintbrushes, and I've also got this blue painter's tape in case I decide to do some really straight edges. And the paints I've gone with are sample pots from Bunnings of house paint. So I have tried to make pots like this before using just acrylic paint that I'd normally use for painting on canvases. I've also tried spray paint, but the acrylic for painting on canvases is just a bit too thick and the spray paints just weren't working for me. So this consistency of the house paint is perfect. So I just went and got some sample cards, you know, the little sample colours, and worked out which 4 I wanted to go with, and that's how I ended up with these. And they're not really expensive, so it's a great way to try out a few different colours. These pots themselves I got from Bunnings as well. So if you're not in Australia, Bunnings is just your local big hardware store. The pots were really affordable too. The little one was $11 and the big one was $19. But honestly, you could upcycle a pot that you've already got around the house if it's just a flat matte finish of terracotta. Super easy. But if you've got some shiny pots that are looking a bit old and you'd like to give them a revamp, you can just get some of that primers paint from the hardware shop or your local paint store that is designed to go over the top of tiles for people who want to repaint tiles. So you could use that on shiny pots to give it a new flat finish to then paint over with and give it a new lease of life. So here I've started off with the turquoise and now I'm onto the darker blue. Now as you can see, I'm not measuring out these shapes. I'm literally I've got my big paintbrush and I've just gone around and sort of roughed out the look. Now though, I decided to move to the medium-sized brush because I just wasn't able to get the detail with that bigger brush. So it's great to start with the bigger brush to just block out your shapes and then come back through with a smaller brush to give it sort of a finer finish and get those edges nice and smooth. If you were doing a straight edge, you could here use the blue painter's tape to give a really smooth, clean line, but I just like to eyeball it and go by hand. So I'm putting that one off to the side to dry, and I'm now onto the next pot. Now that smaller pot you can actually leave just like that with that wavy edge. I think that looks beautiful, and if you don't like super busy, really bright patterns, then that would be great to leave as is, but I will keep going and give it a couple more layers yet. Now you'll see I'm just painting on the inside just about probably 5-6 centimetres down, and because you're not going to see that part, once we fill these pots with dirt, you just will see the top of it, so that's why I've only sort of gone a little bit on the inside. There's no need to waste paint when we don't need to. Now I'm onto the bottom part of this pot, which I'm doing yellow. Now the yellow has got it's quite bright, so the tint factor is quite high, which means I need to do a few coats to really seal it and give it a nice bright finish. At this point, like I said, with the blue painter's tape, on this style of pot where I'm doing lines around the edges, you could use that painter's tape to get a really straight edge, but as you know, I like a little bit of curve and a little bit of sort of that rustic look. Now I am just putting some more brown paper on the base because I don't want to, I've got quite a few paint droplets and I don't want to get this pot all dirty with other paint colours. Now in my head I decided I wanted to have some kind of flower as a feature on the smaller pot. I think that looks really cool. I'm keeping the bigger one as more of a pattern. Now I didn't really have an idea of what type of flower, so I just went ahead and started painting on to see how it looks. This pink, I just love this pink. It's just great. Now, if you don't think you're confident with just freestyle painting on some flowers, you could create a little stencil for yourself, or you can even, you know, when you can buy those stencils, there's a few different options, or maybe just draw one out on a piece of paper and then cut it out and sort of use it as and then you could get a pencil and do a rough outline. Or just do like me, just eyeball it and chuck it straight on. The way I see it is you can always paint over it if you don't like how it looks. Now here I'm just, because I've already done 2 flowers, I'm just taking a minute to work out the distance between the next flowers, because if I left too much of a distance between that second flower and this flower, then I would run out of room for a 4th flower. So that's something you do need to be mindful of when you are creating a pattern on a round shape like this. Just take a minute to space it out properly so that it looks great and you don't get to that last flower and go, oh no, I don't have enough room to do it. Okay, so this smaller pot ending up getting 4 flowers on it. 2 different styles, which I'm into woven. So one's that bigger flower and with the sort of more pointed round edges, and this one's got sort of a bit more texture to the flower petals. Okay, so I'm just finishing off the painting of that 4th flower, and now I'm just going to go around on every single flower and just give it another couple of coats, because we are painting this lighter pink onto the dark blue, so it does take a couple of coats to really get that nice solid pink colour coming through. So just take your time on this part, enjoy the process. I've sped the video up so you don't have to sit through it all. But it's really, I just love the process of painting. So this whole process from start to finish took about an hour. That's for both pots, start to finish. So we're just finishing off this last flower, and then I'm going to do one more little feature. So I wanted to add the yellow in. I was thinking originally of doing an outline of the flower with the yellow, but then I decided just to keep it sort of plain, and I'm doing some dots. Now I've taken quite a bit of time here to decide where I'm putting the dots. I thought maybe around the top in that turquoise, but then thought no, too much. So I'm actually really pleased where I ended up putting the dots. I think it looks really cool, that yellow up against that dark deep blue. Now I've just sort of, as you can see, I loaded up this little sponge brush with quite a bit of paint, and then I've just dabbed on the paper to spread it out so it's nice and even. I was hoping that I could just dab it on, but it sort of left that spongy bumpy look, so I've sort of dabbed, but now I'm curling it around, and I'm really happy with that finish. Now you don't need to use a sponge like this to do circles. You can absolutely use a paintbrush, and that would have looked fine, like little circles done with a paintbrush. They might not have been perfect, but that adds to the charm a lot too. But I'm really happy with this look. Now with these little sponge dabbers, I think I just got this from a cheapie store. I got like a pack of different shapes and sizes for a couple of dollars. Probably a craft shop would have this type of thing, or check out your little cheapie shop. They often have craft sections with things like this next to the paintbrushes. So I've just gone around and just really gone with my gut as to whereabouts I liked it. And then I thought it just needs one more thing. So I've done the yellow dot in the middle of the flowers, and I don't know about you, but I just love how this turned out. I really think it finishes it off beautifully. I love the look, and it just ties the pot in really nicely, and that is done. I could keep going with colour, but I just think that looks really nice as it is, and remembering we're going to be putting plants in it, so it's going to have more details at the top anyway. So I've decided to keep that turquoise just plain. So I'm really happy with that one. And now we are onto the larger pot. So I'm going to continue the dots on this pot, but just around the top. So I'm remembering I'm keeping this pot with more of a pattern, because I am going to put these pots next to each other when I am finished with them. They're going outside with some succulents and cactuses. So I want them to match in, but not get lost in each other's patterns. So that's why I've kept one with some nice stripes and the other one's more bold with the flowers. So now I'm just going around with the pink and just doing really rough lines. Like it's meant to look really natural and organic. So this, I'm just following the curves, and some lines are longer, some are shorter based on the thickness of the turquoise between the yellow and the blue. And again, with this pink, I'm just having to do a couple of coats with the pink because it is a lighter colour. Then I've gone down on the yellow and just doing some big blue lines. I wasn't sure how this would look, to be honest. It was a brisk, but I actually think it really looks cool, and I just think it ties the whole pot in beautifully because you've got the blue at the top and then we're just adding in some of that blue at the bottom. And I'm really happy with how this is looking. As you can see, these lines are not perfect by any means. They're really natural painty finishes, and that's the way I like it. If you wanted to have much more linear and smooth lines, you could use that blue painter's tape again, like I suggested earlier. But for me, this natural look is exactly what I was thinking when I set out to do these. Now I have, because I didn't wait for each layer to dry, I just had to do a few little touch-ups there. But that is done. So I'm really happy with how they turned out.
I hope you enjoyed today's DIY tutorial. I can't wait to see your pots, so make sure you tag me on social media. If you're on Instagram, I'm at Rondell, or TikTok, I'm at Rondell Designs, and Facebook, I've got the link below in the description. I've also got the link to the paint colours I used and the actual pots I bought, and I would love for you to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more art and craft based DIY tutorials.